Call tonight's meeting to order. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Good evening. Do we have a closed session report?
Nothing to report, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, Mr. Tim Shannon, welcome this evening.
Thank you.
Would you lead us in our pledge?
Absolutely, my pleasure. Hand over heart. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Ready.
Everybody have a chance to review the agenda. Any changes? Mr. City Manager?
No, sir. Thank you.
Do we need to do a roll
Mayor?
call?
I'm sorry?
Please call roll. Mr. Mayor?
Oh, do we need
Roll call.
roll call? I'm sorry. I knew we were here, but
Councilmember Litzter?
Here.
Councilmember Luevanos?
Here.
Councilmember Judge is absent. Mayor Pro Tem Kavanaugh?
Here.
And Mayor Mashburn.
here. Now, I'm sorry, agenda review. Anybody have anything change on the agenda, comments? Okay.
I move that all resolutions and ordinances presented tonight be read in title only and all further reading be waived.
Second.
Call for the vote.
The motion passes unanimously with Councilmember Judge absent.
Okay. Declaration of conflict. Anybody have a conflict with any items on the agenda tonight? No? Okay.
Mr. Mayor and members of the City Council, the first item on the agenda is 1D1, a presentation by Catherine Stiles, Director of Community Integration Adventist Health, Simi Valley Hospital, regarding the study and the work that the hospitals are doing throughout Ventura County. And Interim City Manager Gabler is here for the presentation.
And let me just, pardon me again, I'm going to take responsibility for not catching this. Should have been below the public statements because it's substantive. So I would suggest that the chair open it up as part of that process to see if anyone has comments on it at some point during this item.
Okay, comments on this presentation. Okay, so are you saying we should move to it, or?
You can either just at any time ask if there's any comments.
Okay,
or
let's go ahead with the presentation, then we'll ask for public comments. And that'll give you an opportunity. If you have a comment on the presentation, please fill out a blue card and give it to the clerk.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, as they come forward, please. Catherine Stiles, Director of Community Integration with Adventist Health Simi Valley, and Aaron Slack, epidemiologist with Ventura County Public Health, are here this evening to make a presentation on the collaborative effort in Ventura County to conduct the 2019 Community Health Needs Assessment.
Correct.
Please.
Thank you so much. Appreciate the opportunity to speak to you, and very honored. Adventist Health Simi Valley this year conducted our Community Health Needs Assessment, which is required by the IRS to maintain our nonprofit status. And this is the first time that we have done it in collaboration with partners throughout Ventura County. We are a chartered membership group, and we have come together to share data and to make sure that we are presenting something that's actionable and meaningful to the entire county, not just to small subsets within Ventura County. Adventist Health Simi Valley is making this report free, of course, to the community at large. We've presented you with printed copies, and we consider it a gift to the community to utilize this data to make good decisions on how we go about ensuring the ongoing health of our community members. We are specifically focused on at-risk populations and high utilization populations who tend to need more care and services around social needs rather than just healthcare needs. So at this time, I'd like to turn it over to Aaron Slack, who is an epidemiologist with Ventura County Public Health, who helped to, herd some cats and got us all aligned. And she has been just an outstanding partner. And I would like her to present the data that we found and things that could be informational. It's very short, but this is a huge report, so we're giving it a brief summary. So Erin, do you mind?
Sure. Thank you so much for having me here today to talk about the health assessment. As Catherine said, I've been the herder of cats for all of these organizations, and I have an interest in the health department because we really look at population health and trying to improve population health within the entire county of Ventura. So having all of the health system partners has been really great in terms of us moving from just assessing the population to really talking about improving the population's health and looking at strategies for which we can do so. So I'm going to show a little bit about the data and then tell you where you can go for more information about both the health assessment and our implementation strategy plan. This slide here shows you life expectancy by zip code for all of Ventura County. We enjoy a really high life expectancy in Ventura County of 82 years, and there's 12 zip codes in Ventura County that actually have a lower life expectancy. You'll see both Simi Valley zip codes have a lower life expectancy than the overall average. It's not statistically significantly lower. However, it is lower in the bottom 12. It goes from Oakview at 79.1 years all the way up to Thousand Oaks Westlake Village at 86.6 years. In general, you'll see that life expectancy in areas that have higher socioeconomic status, higher income levels, higher education levels, enjoy a higher life expectancy, and those with lower socioeconomic status have lower life expectancy. However, this is consistent with the United States as a whole. The top 1% of earners in the United States have a 14.6-year higher life expectancy than the bottom 1% of earners. So our gap in terms of geographic area has actually closed over the last few years. We used to have a 12-year difference in life expectancy between the highest and lowest zip code, and this time around it was 7.5 years. If we look at our leading causes of premature death in Ventura County, we like to look at premature death rather than leading causes of death because the leading causes of death don't really change much over time. So I do an additional analysis for the health assessment, and we see that cancer is our leading cause of premature death. It's also our leading cause of death in Ventura County. But in terms of premature death, accidents are number 2, which is an increase from the leading causes of premature death. Drug-induced deaths are also higher, suicide is also higher, and motor vehicle traffic crashes. From the previous assessment period, we've had an increase in accidents, and in particular, motor vehicle traffic crashes from the previous assessment period, so it's something that we're looking at. And if you look at males versus females, the leading causes of premature death are different for males versus females. Cancer is still number 1 for males and females, but we see that drug-induced deaths and suicide and motor vehicle traffic crashes are higher for males than they are for females, and females have cerebrovascular disease and Alzheimer's disease higher than for males. So one of the reasons that we look at premature death is that it allows for an opportunity for public health intervention. So if we look at where younger people are dying, then we have the ability to look at strategies to address those premature deaths. And so one of the things that we look at is average years of life lost per death. So this is the top 10 in terms of average years of life lost per death. So what this means is from 2015 to 2017, we had 82 homicides in Ventura County. And on average, someone lost almost 60 years of life. So they died almost 60 years prematurely. Firearm-related deaths was number 2 at 46 years. Drug-induced deaths, number 3 at 45 years. Motor vehicle traffic crashes, 45 years. Suicide, 41 years. So this looks a little bit different than the leading causes of death in that these are all related to the built environment and those social determinants of health. So if we're going to really improve health and wellness for our population and increase life expectancy in our areas, then we need to start looking at safety in an environment, access to safe recreational opportunities, increasing educational opportunities so that young people aren't involved in homicides and firearm-related deaths. So we really need to shift our focus to the social determinants of health. And so that's something that you'll see when you look at the report in terms of the community health assessment, as well as our implementation strategies. So this is just to show you that this is the community health assessment. I encourage you to visit Health Matters in Ventura County. It's a website that is sponsored by the Public Health Department, but in collaboration with all the health systems. We have a whole page about the community health assessment and all the priority areas that have come forth through the health assessment. You're also able to go down on the actual website and choose a zip code and look at all of the data that we have for that particular zip code. We have emergency utilization, hospital utilization by zip code, so that you can look for your particular community where there's disparities in terms of ER and hospital utilization. So I encourage you to visit that website. And then the priority areas that came forth through our primary data collection, which we did surveys, focus groups, key informant interviews. We did a secondary data analysis that included about 241 different health indicators. If you're interested in that data, it's in the appendix of this report. And then we also did a community health survey that was distributed to 2,700 residents in Ventura County. And through that data collection and analysis, we came to these 5 priority health issues: improve access to health services, reduce the impact of behavioral health issues, improve health and wellness for older adults, addressing social needs, and then reducing the burden of chronic disease. And as a health system, they're required to have an implementation strategy report that addresses one or all of these needs. And as a collaborative, all of the health systems have come together and adopted these priority areas. So we'll all be working in concert with one another to address these issues. So previously, when each of those organizations that were on the first slide, everyone produced their own community health assessment, everyone produced their own plan, and we're working in silos. And so now we've gotten to the point where everyone's going to be working together to address these needs, and so we'll make a bigger impact within our community. So I talked a little bit about the implementation strategy plan. This is a long-term systematic effort. This is the first time we've all gotten together to work on the health assessment. This is the first time that we're actually going to be working on a plan together. When I first went to all of the health system providers and asked them to work together on the health assessment, I never dreamed that we'd get to the point where we actually had a plan of implementation that we would all work together. So I'm so hopeful that moving forward, we're really going to be able to make an impact within the community through these strategies. So there's a lot of verbiage on this slide, but just to kind of take you through this, one of the strategies is about increasing the collaborative sustainability. We have all of these health system providers together, and right now we all have separate funding streams and staff that are dedicated to this work, but we want to make it so that this is a sustainable collaborative into the future that has consistent funding and resources to implement the strategies that need to be done. We'll also be working on a social needs network or a community information exchange that will allow for providers in the community to make those referrals to social services providers so that our residents can get the social needs taken care of. So when the clinician is trying to work with them, those clinical needs are more able to be met because the social needs are being met. We're also doing a food insecurity project where there's screening in the clinical environment for food insecurity and referrals to appropriate resources such as CalFresh, our Women, Infant, and Children program, and specifically our diabetes prevention program, because the pre-diabetic population that are food insecure are much more likely to go on to develop diabetes. And then the final one is a caregiver navigation project. In Ventura County, we enjoy a long life expectancy, but we're also going to see a huge increase in our 60 and over population. I presented at the Master Plan on Aging a few weeks ago, and there's going to be a 66% increase in our 60 and over population by 2060, and our general population is only going to increase by 13%. So we're going to have a lot of older adults, including myself by that time, that are going to possibly need caregivers. And caregivers are able to provide the support to that person so that they can then, in turn, if we reduce the burden on the caregivers, then they're more able to provide support to that person to reduce their utilization of the emergency room and also hospitalization, so we can reduce costs by also improve quality of life for these individuals. So the last project that we're all working on as a collaborative is a caregiver navigation project to really support caregivers in our community and provide them with the resources that they need in order to provide the care to their loved one or friend. And so those are the 4 areas that we've included in the implementation strategy report. We have logic models for each of them, which is basically a plan for how we're going to work over the next 3 years towards these initiatives. And that report will be coming out within the next few weeks and will be available on the website that I mentioned previously. So with that, I'll turn it over to Catherine if she has any closing remarks.
Thank you, Erin. See why I like her to do the presenting. Adventist Health Simi Valley is very proud to present this implementation strategy, and we are augmenting it with some local initiatives that we are pursuing based on the relationships that we've developed. The caregiver network is one, but we want to augment that with some disaster preparedness because we recognize that we have seniors aging in place, and we are working with some of our partners like the police department as how we can identify these high-risk seniors who are medically fragile and isolated and need special care when we are preparing for fire or evacuations or power outages. So that's an example of how we take a broad goal that's through the collaborative, and then we whittle it down to a very specific need in Simi Valley. So we're making sure that we're not losing sight of the actual specific needs of our community. Another area that we're focused on is our foster youth who are aging out of the system. They're 40% more likely to end up homeless, and as you know, we have a tremendous homeless crisis. And in Simi Valley, we have more than our share of foster youth who are struggling to get services. So that's one of our main priorities right now, and that will be part of our implementation strategy that you'll see when we publish that. So we're just proud to be part of this community. Our goal is to become more proactive and to be helping our community avoid needing the hospital or avoid those acute care settings, and how can the hospital use its influence, its resources, and leverage itself in a proactive stance to prevent things from getting worse or to improve future outcomes for future generations. And I'm proud to say that Adventist Health, our parent company, has invested $10 billion with a B over the past 10 years in capital expansions. And you know that Adventist Health Simi Valley has expanded phenomenally in the past 10 years. But the next 10 years, our 2030 strategy map is about to be published, and it includes a $10 billion with a B investment in community well-being work. And I'm very proud that my organization has made that commitment and that I get to be part of it. But I'm your representative here of that work. So if you have follow-up for me or you need any support or you have ideas for the hospital where we can be a better support to our community, please reach out to me and let me know. Any questions?
Thank you very much. Wonderful, very informative and wonderful collaborative effort. So appreciative. So just on your last comment, of that $10 billion that it's Adventist, do we have an amount that might trickle into Simi Valley? I mean, not just...
I'm going for all of it right now.
I like that.
No, I don't know that. It will be based on our need, and our needs assessment is helpful towards that. So, and your voices. So the more we know, the more we can advocate. So if you come across an unmet need or something that we've missed, reach out to me and let me know so that we can formulate a strategy and make sure we're getting those funds here in Simi Valley.
And I loved, if I understood what you are working on specifically, the caregiver program of disaster preparedness for the elder, seniors, et cetera. How do you identify those who are in need? Do they have to have been a patient of the hospital? Is it coming through the senior center? I mean, what is your...
Yeah, it'll be a mix-up of those data sets, and working closely with the police and the first responders. They actually do know a lot about those vulnerable seniors and where they're at. And in the initial conversations that we've been having, we believe we can create a database and manage that database through partnerships and update that database on a regular basis. But I'm looking at ways that we could do possibly, my idea right now is, could we have a generator loaner program and then have, build on that. So start somewhere that we can measure, something that we can conquer now, and then build on that program.
Very good. Well, thank you.
Any other comments, questions?
I love hearing you mention data. I am a data geek, and nothing's worth doing unless you can measure where you were and how you ended up and whether it was effective. And if you don't have the data, the numbers to do that, and I will be looking through the appendixes, poring over all the data and information. So thank you for having that, because it's always important not just to expend our resources on needs in the community, but to make sure that those resources are being used wisely and effectively. So I had a few questions for you. one of the things that you had up there was chronic lower respiratory diseases. And so this is a question for you. Does that include asthma, or what kind of respiratory diseases does that include?
That does include asthma. There's a myriad of ICD-10 codes. It includes COPD, asthma, if any sort of like chronic lung disease, it includes in the ICD-10 codes. So it's a conglomerate of codes that are included in that.
Okay, I wanted to make sure that was included in that code.
Most of the time, though, on the death certificate, someone's not going to put asthma as, it could be a significant contributor, but it might not be a final cause of death on the death certificate.
And the reason I'm asking is, as we continue to have, climate change and wildfires, we continue to have students who are in our community that is impacted by the asthma. I personally have asthma. I've taken my daughter many times. I have been to the emergency room when we've had wildfires because I just can't breathe, and I'm the one walking around with the mask when there are fires. So, that is, I just wanted to see if that was included in that number, in that statistic.
Well, and if you go on the Health Matters website, we do have ER utilization and hospitalization data for asthma by zip code, so you can see those areas. And that's one of the indicators that we look at the health department, is do we have high utilization of the emergency room for asthma, because that may indicate that there's lack of access to health services in those areas for asthma control. And so that's definitely something that we look at the health department.
And when there are, when there is lower, air quality, we've had, the school district here has made policy decisions to shut down this whole school district because of poor air quality. Is that something that you guys consider, having more staff at that point in time, or, to make sure that you can handle all those issues, or?
We aren't involved all that much in terms of the decision making at the school district level. Our health officer will provide assistance and information to school districts when they're trying to make a decision, and they usually work through the Office of Emergency Services when the Emergency Operations Center is activated to determine whether there's a need to close school districts, but the Air Pollution Control District helps to make some of those decisions as well. So in concert with public health, we usually help with distributing masks when there's poor air quality, especially during the wildfire season, and then we are part of the Emergency Operations Center, but the Air Pollution Control District really helps to, with the school districts, to determine when that need.
And I want to thank you for that, because I have gone in there and I've seen other people getting masks, and the CVS and the Rite Aid, they're all sold out, and no one has them, but you guys always do. So thank you for providing that service. I don't know if you're aware, but I'm on the task force for homelessness, and I'm going to be sharing out a report later about that. But I noticed that 2 of your core issues were about addressing the needs of homelessness, of our homeless population, and reducing the impact of behavioral health issues. So I want to ask you, for either one or both of you, what can we as a city do to help address these core issues, either these 2 or any of the 5 core issues?
Well, so for the reducing the impact of behavioral health issues, we are really leaning on our behavioral health department and working on, they have funding to support, through the Mental Health Services Act, to support interventions in the community regarding behavioral health and mental health. And so we're working with our behavioral health department. You'll see that there's not a strategy in the actual implementation plan for the behavioral health, because our Ventura County Behavioral Health Department just did a mental health needs assessment that included substance abuse, and so they're developing a strategy plan to address those issues. In terms of homelessness, that's another area where we didn't go there in the implementation strategy plan, but we have the Continuum of Care Alliance in Ventura County that is coordinated by the CEO's office, and I know they're doing a lot of work to try to address homeless issues. And the hospitals actually as well have some new mandates regarding homelessness that I'll let Catherine probably talk about, but that's going to be gone through, some of that information will be going through the collaborative as well.
Yeah, at the hospital, we're obviously addressing the needs of the homeless when we discharge them for the SB 1152 bill, but we're trying to go above and beyond the requirements of the law and get proactive. So we are starting some programs where we're meeting with key providers and developing some MOUs where we can do a better job of meeting the needs of the homeless, and specifically the need of the homeless who have a hospice orders or unfortunately need palliative care because they have a condition that, that is unmanageable, but they can't be in a hospital setting. So we have a lot of work to do. Let me just tell you, it's a lot of work. What the city can do to help is the things that you're doing with the task force is convening resources, helping with affordable housing, helping with job development, job creation, career development. One of the reasons why we're focused on foster youth aging out of the health care, or aging out of foster care, is because they are such a vulnerable population and they have such a disproportionate likelihood of becoming homeless. So at the hospital level, if we're going to look at prevention, we feel like that's a population that we can target right away, and we can put resources around that, and then we can measure the results. So we're open to your suggestions as well as what the hospital can do better. We are trying to coordinate more thoughtfully with the police, with the police social workers and with the first responders and the other providers in town.
I do suggest, I just attended the Community Coalition United meeting, which is a coalition of nonprofits in the community which work with a number of our foster youth, at-risk youth, like almost all the 5 categories that you mentioned. They work with all of those populations. June Yort is the person who is in charge of the Community Coalition United. I highly encourage you to attend our next meeting. We're not sure where our January meeting will be, but I highly recommend that you reach out to them and attend one of the meetings because there's a lot of resources there. And when you talk about collaborative communication and having a safety net for our most vulnerable youth, and those are the youth that I work with at a continuation high school, foster homeless youth. So I know what that need is, and also that we don't have a shelter in East Ventura County, that the nearest shelter is all the way in Oxnard, and I don't even know if it's built yet, but that they have to take how many buses to get all the way out there, or go to San Fernando Valley, and even then those shelters are always full, and I know because those are my students.
Yeah.
So thank you for the suggestions, and we will take that into mind with regards to affordable housing and jobs that allow people to live a sustainable life.
Thank you. I will reach out to June too. I have her card on my desk, so
Absolutely.
I appreciate that so much. Thank you.
May I just make a couple of quick comments?
Sure.
I want to really thank Adventist Health. I sit on the governing board currently. I'm stepping off this year. And I've been on the foundation board. Giovanni's there. So that's one way to help support our hospitals. We have a great foundation. And Adventist Health has really contributed to our community. They ask us to pay a percentage, and then they pay for the rest of it. So, and I know we're going to need some work on the old building very soon. Jennifer Swenson, the CEO, was just talking about that recently. But I want to thank you guys for getting together with the other organizations. I know we have to do a needs assessment, so this is really a great way to do it, is collaborative and with everybody, including the county, and to bring their knowledge in. So thank you, Catherine. Thank you to the entire staff and to everyone else at Adventist Health.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any public comments? Did you get any cards? No public comments? Yes, sir. Yeah, fill it out. Come on down and fill it out while you're speaking, or shortly thereafter.
2 minutes?
3.
3? Okay. Where should I stand? Here?
No, right there. There's a mic on the, yeah, and there's a button on the side of the podium. You can move it up to higher for.
This side? This side. Sort of. I'd like to speak on homelessness. I've been homeless for 6 years. Never thought I'd be homeless this long. I never applied for Section 8 because I figured a waiting list that took 4 years to get anywhere was not worth getting on. I still haven't applied. I recently got an inheritance. I've spent half of it. I'm down to $21,000, and I can't figure out what to do to solve my homelessness. I refuse to rent to watch television. I'm a little confused. It finally dawned on me that there really is no such thing as private property if someone can tell you what you can do on your land. But what I would like is to be able to buy the smallest piece of land as possible and put a tough shed on it. There's a hierarchy of being homeless. There's shopping cart homeless. There's living in your car homeless. There's RV homeless. But the main thing that the police understand is the property owners. Seems like the police always side with the property owners. So it's very important to own property. If I had property, I would like to park my car on it as a safe parking zone. I'd like to put up a tent, and then a sukkah, and then a tough shed, and then start building a house one room at a time. Or trade up. I really don't want to be put in a ghetto with other homeless people. So, you know, Reagan said that government was in the way, and the only program that it's programs that have eternal life. I don't know, I'm not quoting it quite right or saying it quite right, but I have a math degree. You think I would be in commodity. I've been told that I'm valuable, but my life experience tells me otherwise. Recently, I went to jail, the temporary solution to my homelessness for being a Christian. I was objecting to LGBT, and the judge, who would not say one nation under God, ruled Leviticus 18:26 as inflammatory. There was no trial. I was in jail for 5 months. I believe we are a communist nation at this point. We have turned our back on God. I would rather, like the U.S. Senate, that you open with a prayer rather than a pledge to a country. The Declaration of Dependence, not independence, independence from Great Britain, dependence said, we form this government with a firm reliance on the Creator.
Thank you. I might add that in your situation, are you familiar with the Samaritan Center?
I've been there, but the majority of the time I'm in the San Fernando Valley. Since I was banished from the library, I come here.
Okay, because I can tell you this, there's resources and guidance available there. Doesn't mean you have to go live there if you don't want, and I'm not trying to say you need to go there and stay there or anything like that. I'm just suggesting that you go talk to them and ask them about the resources that are available for you in your situation, and maybe they can help you out.
I want to say one more thing. A minimum wage without minimum hours is 0 times 15, which is still 0. Minimum wage is 0.
Thank you, sir.
Mayor Mashburn, members of the City Council, my name is Tim Shannon, 3351 Elmore Street. I just wanted to follow up on some of the things that the ladies were talking about with the program. As Councilwoman Kavanaugh mentioned, this is something we have to do. This is this assessment. We have to do it every 3 years. And so I've been involved in several of these. This one is very exciting because this is the first time we've done this collaboration throughout the county. And I think with the combination of resources, I think we're going to come up with a much better plan and a much better approach to the needs. As Councilman Luevina said, you know, we need to go reach out and talk to people. That is the next step. So we've got the assessment, and we've prioritized the steps on the assessment that are the priorities, and we are now going to come together with a subcommittee and develop an action plan, and part of that action plan will be reaching out to all the different community resources, not only within this city, but the cities throughout the county. So it's a very exciting process, excited to be part of it, and I think you'll see some very concrete improvements in areas that face us, problems that face us. Thank you.
Thank you.
No others.
Last one. Okay. Comments from me, I kind of missed. Adventist Health is darn near as long as I can remember has been a leader in this community and innovator in this community. And I see this as a great thing. And when I was looking at the partners up there, I was looking for the city logo up there. And all I say is, please reach out to us as needed. I think what you're doing is wonderful. Hopefully you'll continue on. And any way the city can be a partner with you or help you in any way, please don't hesitate to call on us. Okay? Thank you. Okay.
Mr. Mayor and members of the City Council, the next item on the agenda is 3.1, an informational presentation by Youth Council member Sneha Sundram.
Good evening, Mayor Mashburn and members of the City Council. Thank you for inviting me to speak this evening. My name is Sneha Sundram, and I'm a current senior at Simi Valley High School. It is my honor and a privilege to be serving and representing my peer community today as part of the Simi Valley Youth Council. This evening, I will be addressing the proceedings of the Youth Council over the past few weeks. Preparations for the Youth Council's 2020 Youth Town Hall have officially begun. Youth Council members provided updates on the top concerns gathered during brainstorming discussions at each one of our schools. Common responses from students revolved around the topics of substance abuse, mental health awareness, and public safety. We are currently working with the Ronald Reagan Presidential Library and Museum staff in developing these topics, selecting panelists, and coordinating the event. We have also begun discussing our 2020 Youth Summit. We have voted our top choices for the 2020 Youth Summit keynote speaker and will be discussing the theme of the event at our upcoming Youth Council meeting. I'm excited to announce that our November 5th meeting, the Youth Council has approved our 2019 to 2020 work plan. The 5 focus areas for this term are as follows. We would like to advocate an anonymous tip system where friends can submit mental health issue concerns regarding friends or student peers to counselors. The school counselor should then check in with the student to see if they have any issues to discuss, such as mental health or substance abuse. We also would like to continue research increasing Wi-Fi strength and accessibility on school campuses to allow students to use Chromebooks and other technology for homework, research, and online tests and quizzes. Reducing vaping on school campuses by establishing awareness patrols as a deterrent. Increased number of routine drug tests at school campuses. And increase awareness of college grant and scholarship opportunities on websites, online promotions like social media, school papers like newsletters, flyers, and posters, and local and national news outlets. On October 19, 2019, Youth Council members enjoyed hosting a table at the Rancho Simi Recreation and Park District's 3rd Annual Heritage Halloween and Movie in the park at Strathern Historical Park. We gave out treats to more than 400 little trick-or-treaters in the span of an hour and a half. Youth Council meetings are held the 1st and 3rd Tuesday of each month during the school year. The next Youth Council meeting will be held on Tuesday, November 19th at 5 p.m. here at City Hall. Meetings are public and attendants are always more than welcome. I would like to thank Mayor Mashburn and the City Council for having me here tonight. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have at this time. Thank you.
Any questions?
Not a question, just a comment.
Okay.
Thank you for coming to the meeting and sharing out all the information on the Youth Town Hall and Youth Summit, and we're here to provide support and especially for our youth. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And I would say you do this like a real pro, and you look really good in that seat. So watch out in a few years.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council, next on the agenda is public hearings. This is a time and place set for a public hearing on the consideration of matters as presented on this agenda. Let the record show that due notice was given as required by law, and an affidavit to this effect is in file in the office of the City Clerk. The reports to the City staff relating to these matters shall be made part of the record of this meeting. Speakers during the public hearing shall limit their comments to the matter relevant to the item on the agenda, and may be ruled out of order if comments are unrelated to the item. If you challenge in court any of the City Council decisions made here tonight, you may be limited to raising those issues or someone else raised at the public hearing. The time with which judicial review must be sought and governed by California Code of Civil Procedure, Section 1094.6. Agenda item 4A, public hearing and second reading of ordinance number 1301 to consider amendments to the Simi Valley Municipal Code, Title 8, Building Regulations, and adoption of the 2019 California Building Standard Codes by reference. Ted Drago is here for this presentation.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, you may begin the public hearing.
Okay. First off, is there any speaker cards? No. There's none. Okay. So if you want to speak on this public hearing item, just fill out a card and bring it forward. This is the time and place set for a public hearing on the adoption of ordinance number 1301, amending Title 8 of the Simi Valley Municipal Code. May I have a reading of the ordinance, please?
Ordinance number 1301, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Simi Valley, amending Title 8 of the Simi Valley Municipal Code, adopting by reference, together with amendments thereto, the codes that comprise Title 24 of the California Code of Regulations, and specifically the 2019 edition of the California Building Code, the 2019 edition of the California Residential Code, the 2019 edition of the California Electrical Code, the 2019 edition of the California Mechanical Code, the 2019 edition of the California Plumbing Code, the 2019 edition of the California Energy Code, the 2019 edition of the California Green Building Standards Code, the 2019 edition of the California Historical Building Code, the 2019 edition of the California Existing Building Code, the 2019 edition of the California Reference Standard Code, the 2018 International Property Maintenance Code, security standards for buildings as mandated by California Health and Safety Code Section 18938, and repealing Ordinance 1262 in its entirety.
We have a report from staff. Mr. Drago.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, City Council members. We're here tonight for the second reading of the proposed ordinance 1301. The California Government Code requires the second reading be a public hearing when codes are adopted by reference. At the conclusion of the public hearing, staff recommends the City Council adopt Ordinance 1301. This concludes staff's comments, and we're here for any questions.
Okay, questions to staff?
That's the shortest report I've heard.
Remember, we've already seen this once. We probably don't need to.
I move to adopt ordinance number 1301, amending Title 8 of the Simi Valley Municipal Code.
With
Sorry.
one thing we want to find out about public comments.
Sorry.
Do you have any cards on this? No cards. Okay.
I did have a question, if this is the time, whenever it's the time.
Okay.
Of staff. I noticed in the consent calendar there is a fire code discussion that would change. If and when if we were to approve that, does that then would we have to go back and change this building code?
No, we don't. They are separate.
They are totally separate, and that does not get written into our code.
No, the fire code ratification is part of the county's ratification enforced by the county.
Gotcha, but it's not, okay, thank you.
I had one really quick question, and it's just a clarification.
Okay.
Mayor?
Yes.
On page 27.
Page what? I'm sorry.
Page 27 of Ordinance 1301, 8-5.06, electrical permit exemptions, and I'm only asking this because of the weather that we've had, and I know that there are people that are using, portable generators, so I wanted to make sure that that electrical permit exemption applies to generators.
Typically, it will apply to generators that aren't backfeeding or hardwired improperly into an existing electrical panel. So you can plug in a generator without a problem at your house for emergency purposes.
Okay.
But you don't want to backfeed your building unless you get a permit for it or get it properly wired.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure, because I know, we're worried about power shutdowns, people running out buying generators, and with the weather and the heat, I just wanted to make sure that people were aware that they do not need an electrical permit for this. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, there's no public statements. Hearing's closed. Councilmember, let's go ahead. Do you want a second on your, do we have a second?
I'll second Mayor Pro Tem Kavanaugh's motion.
Okay. Do you have her motion?
No, I'm sorry.
I read the suggested. I move to adopt ordinance number 1301, amending Title 8 of the Simi Valley Municipal Code.
And I second.
Okay, call for the vote.
Motion passes unanimously with Councilmember Judge absent.
And Mr. Mayor, just for completeness, I think item 2, comments on what would be youth council, wasn't entered into the record if there were any comments on that item.
I asked a couple of times if there was any.
I think it may have applied to this hearing.
No, prior to that, I said before we start this hearing, I asked if there was any speaker cards for anything else. Did I not? Okay, yeah, so I did, so I think we covered it. Or that was my attempt to cover it anyway. Okay.
Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council, next item on the agenda is item 5. This is the time for public statements on all items other than the public hearing, appointments, and certain committee information. Speakers will be called in the order in which their card was submitted, and they have 3 minutes to speak. When the yellow light comes on, speakers will have 30 seconds to conclude the comments. Council members cannot respond to your questions during this time, however, may offer a response to the extent possible under Agenda 5A. And Mayor, we only have 1 speaker card for this item.
Okay.
Giovanni Ragsdale.
Before you get started, please, as a matter of consistency, we ask that you state your name and the city of residence. You are not, I repeat, you are absolutely not required to give your city. And I don't think you're required to give your name. So, so if you don't want to do that, please just say, I don't wish to give that information.
Giovanni Ragsdale, resident of Simi Valley. Thank you, Mayor Mashburn and councils, members of the City of Simi Valley. I just this evening, in the good spirit of Thanksgiving, wanted to thank you for your service. And I also wanted to address the fact that there are several members of the Simi Valley Leadership Class of 2020 that are here this evening. And just want to kind of make an opportunity to connect and let you know that we as students are trying to learn a little bit more about the city, but also improve in the projects and activities that we hope our community project will be accepted as it moves forward through the regular channels that it goes. So just a simple thank you for the service that you do for our city every day.
Great, thank you very much.
Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council, next item on the agenda is 5A, City Council comments regarding public statements. Mr. Mayor, you may begin.
Okay, I gave mine. Thank you.
And I would like to say thank you to Giovanni. Appreciate all that you do with our Advanced Health and Foundation, anyway, the fundraising, all that you do. Thank you.
May
Okay,
I
next.
I'm sorry, may I real quick?
Yes.
Keep it quick. I just want to commend and thank the class of 2020 for coming here tonight. I'm a leadership graduate, and I think it's very beneficial to the business community and to the people attending the classes. So I see Liz, Tom, Giovanni, I'm not sure who else. But thank you all for participating and being here tonight.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council, next on the agenda is item 6, the consent calendar. And there are 3 resolutions for your consideration as follows. Resolution number 2019-48, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Simi Valley establishing the City Council meeting schedule for the calendar year of 2020. Resolution number 2019-49, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Simi Valley amending resolution number 2018-03 to establish a classification, title, and salary range for Deputy City Clerk as a management designated classification, and reclassify employee and position to the new classification. The resolution number 2019-50, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Simi Valley ratifying the Ventura County Fire Protection District's Ordinance number 31, amendments pertaining to building standards requiring installation of fire sprinklers in all occupancies and locations set forth in Chapter 9 within the jurisdictional boundaries of the City of Simi Valley. Staff is available for any questions regarding the items on the consent calendar.
Consent Calendar items to be pulled.
I would like to pull 1, 5, and 6.
1, 5, and 6. Okay. Others?
And I'd like to pull items 3 and 4.
Okay, let's go down the line. Items 1.
My only, well, I don't know, well, I would have us vote separately just because I was not in attendance at those meetings, and so don't feel comfortable. I think I should abstain from voting on that particular, on those minutes, and so they would need to be separate to do so.
Okay. Any other questions on 1?
I also would like to abstain because I was not present. And I was just curious to know, that it's over a year, since those notes, so I didn't know if this was typical, that, it takes this long to get approval of minutes. So I was just curious if anyone can answer that question.
Yeah, we're still playing catch-up on a number of city council meetings. I think we're 8 months, about 8 months behind, so we're catching up. And
Is that because our city clerk retired?
we have a great staff now that is making every effort to get it all done before June, I think.
That is correct.
Yep.
Okay. So I will also abstain because I was not present at that city council meeting.
Okay. So let's go ahead and,
I don't think you'd have the votes then to do it. And if you want to put it over to when you have the 3 left that are here, you could do that, I suppose.
2 won't count?
It's a municipal code question whether if you have 2 abstentions, then they consent, the majority will act for them. I'm not 100%.
Okay, so just put that over till the next meeting when we have the entire council. Okay. Number 5. Oh, I'm sorry. Let's go in order, I said. 3. Who has a question on 3?
Yes, I had a question on consent item number 3, and this is regarding the Community Projects Grant Performance Report. I know we had stated previously that we would, hold $13,000 in case, any other nonprofit needed it, and I didn't see in the staff report, if staff had asked if there was another need in the community. I know that I've spoken to, I know the Samaritan Center has a much greater need than they have in the past, so I didn't know if the Samaritan Center or other nonprofits had asked for that funding or had needed that funding, and so I was just curious to know if anyone on staff had asked if there was a need for that funding.
Good evening. To date, there's been no formal requests for the contingency funds. However, those funds won't be released until sometime in the spring by action of the City Council. So past practice for this program, when funds have been used for an emergent need, it typically has been generated by a request of an individual council member and then consensus among the council to pursue in that direction. So there's still time for those contingency funds to be identified, what the most pressing need is, and then action of the council to release them to either that emergent need or to the free clinic per the contract that's already in place.
So when would be the deadline? Like if some nonprofit comes, to me or to Mayor Pro Tem or to the mayor or councilwoman that's there and says, hey, we have, 3 times the need than we had last year and we really need extra funding. And I know we had promised we would, give up this money for the free clinic, but what would be the deadline in order to advocate on behalf of that need in the community?
Due to the fiscal year-end constraints and those types of things, it was staff's intention to ask for the release of the contingency funds with the 3rd quarter report. So that report is due to staff by April 10th. So the most feasible meeting immediately following that is when that item would be brought to the council. And should the city council, once the council item or the council calendar is set for 2020, what we can do is identify what meeting we're planning to attend and have that shared with the council if that's the best way to kind of identify when those staff reports will be processed for that meeting.
Okay, so us releasing these funds does not mean that we couldn't, if there was a need in the community before April 10th, we couldn't still get those funds to that. agency.
Correct. So what the action of the council tonight is just receiving and filing the quarterly report. So if you have any questions, comments, concerns about the substantive nature of what the free clinic has identified in their report, then that would be something to address tonight. With regards to the release of the funds, those funds won't be released until an independent action of the council in later this fiscal year, anticipated in May or early June.
So I would estimate that if someone were to request a fund, they would want to do that before the middle of March.
Okay. So I actually do have a question on the report. So on page 6 of the free clinic income expenses, January through September 2019 report, it says the building expenses are $13,000. And I was curious as to know why the building expenses were so high, because my understanding was that this was a county facility that was being leased at a much smaller amount than $13,000. I believe $1 a year was the amount, is what I heard. So I'm curious to know why the building expenses were so high, and if you had any.
So I don't know specifically. I'm happy to reach out to the free clinic and get back to the council on what specifically that is, but my presumption would be that would be for things such as utilities, landscaping, and other items for the ongoing maintenance and care of the facility in its current state. But I don't want to speak on behalf of them without having asked that question, so I'll be happy to go back and close the loop with the council when I get specificity on what that $13,000 is.
I just would like, that's a big chunk of money, and it just stuck out at me, and so I would just be curious to know what that, I mean, if that's what it's for, then, but it would be nice to know what specifically.
Absolutely.
So
I'll be
would
happy to get that
appreciate getting more
information to the
detail on
council.
We can confirm that and put a memo to council boxes on that.
Thank you, I would greatly appreciate that.
Yep.
So are we going to pull that off?
Yes.
No, wait, 1 minute. Are we-
Yeah, it's okay.
It's okay to vote?
I just
Okay.
have questions.
Okay, thanks. Okay, 4. Someone had questions on 4?
Yes, I pulled 4. I have one conflict, and I really go out of my way not to miss city council meetings. I do have a conflict with the April 20th city council meeting at 6:30, so I was requesting if we could move that meeting either to April 13th or April 27th.
Mayor Pro Tem, do you have a preference of, it or a problem moving it?
No, I was thinking I did, but I don't.
Okay, so either one?
Either one is fine with me.
Okay, Councilmember Lister?
Well, if we're going to be mindful of our schedule, I know that June 22nd, I need to be in Florida for a meeting myself, if that is possible to be moved. April's fine with me if we want to move that. But June 22nd, I will have to miss that. If there's a way that could be changed, if not, I understand.
Okay, let's go back to what her question was. We're talking April.
Oh, I'm sorry, April it's fine with me if you'd like.
Either one?
Either one is fine.
Okay. Councilmember Levinos, go ahead and choose the date. I don't think there's a problem with changing it.
I say we do April 13th,
Okay?
and thank you for the accommodation.
Okay, now, you want to bring it up and change?
Yeah, I actually, I appreciate you broaching the topic, because I recognize that on June 22nd, I need, as chairman of the board of the American Heart Society, need to be conducting the national meetings in Florida on June 22nd. And so, if possible, I would love to reschedule that meeting so that I could attend if possible. And as I see it, there's only one in July, and I'm fine, forward, backward, whatever. If it's,
It needs to be in June.
okay, yeah, but only if it's comfortable for the rest of the
Yeah,
body.
is there a date in June that you would like?
Any other date.
Go ahead and name one.
The 15th or the 29th would be fine.
Okay,
Is there one better for you?
I prefer the 15th.
If I can just check with Joe Tony, our Director of Administrative Services, I know we have a tentative calendar for budget processing.
Oh.
Does June 22nd play into that?
Yeah, Mayor and members of the council, we're targeting the first meeting in June. I don't have the draft calendar in front of me, but we would.
June 8th.
In June 8th, but we would definitely want to have a backstop meeting after that in case there were any reason.
So it could be
to not adopt
either
it.
the 15th or the 29th?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, we just have to do it before July 1.
Okay.
okay, so,
We do have legal counsel and city mayor and council. League of California Cities Mayor and Council Executive Forum, June 16th through the 18th. I don't know if anyone's going to be attending, but
Okay.
So should we do June
29th?
29th then?
June 29th, okay?
It's fine with me if it works better
Okay.
out.
We'll go to the June 29th. Is that okay with you?
I'll make it work.
Okay, so will I. Okay, so we're good to go. on
Bless
that.
you.
Five,
I heard sneezed.
I'm sorry?
Someone sneezed in the audio. I just
Oh.
said bless you.
5.
Yes, I understand, as I read through this material, that this would be another class that we would be moving this employee from a into new classification, basically into management position, and I'm completely in favor of that. I guess my question was with regards to the salary range.
Yes.
As I look at the salary ranges that are posted in the report, and that's on page 7, all of the other deputy positions are in a much different salary range. And so I was curious, you know me, I'm not one to spend a lot of money, but I'm noticing that the high point of the salary range is $5,687, which is, as I look at it, is a couple thousand lower than the minimum of every other deputy management position. Is that correct? Is that?
Well, this position isn't considered a deputy director position. It's a deputy city clerk position, which is identified through a comparison of the job duties that are done and comparing it to other classifications that are in the city. So it's not comparable to a deputy director of a department or anything like that. It's not equivalent to a deputy director.
I understand that. I'm just looking at the rest of the deputies. They're not all, I guess, okay, deputy building official, deputy, I'm just looking at them all. I guess the reason I asked the question is that in my mind, the responsibilities, I just know that this position fills in, runs these meetings, and takes, in case our city clerk is not available, also interfaces with the public for all of, for requests for information, et cetera, and elections, et cetera. I don't know, I just thought it was a very responsible position. I asked the question because in my mind, I thought maybe the salary range, or at least the high end, would be a little higher. I guess that's why I asked the question.
We're very comfortable with what we're proposing.
Was this, and I appreciate that, was this proposed based, tell me where the salary range came from? Was it from a report? Was it?
It's reviewed, it's done by a consultant that we have that looks at the position, looks at the job classifications based upon information that's provided by the city and that the incumbent would do, looking at the work that is accomplished as it compares to other job classifications in the city, and taking into consideration some of the other positions that are out there. So we do a thorough analysis of all the work that is being done by this position and looking at as it would compare with other positions in the city.
May I, real quick, isn't our city clerk position equal to a deputy director or similar? The full city clerk?
No, the city clerk position pretty much stands on its own.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I guess my question, if I may, Councilwoman Litzler, I don't want to interrupt you. My question is, it talks about the salary range, but I'm curious as to benefits because I know as an employee, we look at not just salary, but benefits as well, and sometimes that's the, extra compensation. So I'm curious to know, and I know, that management has a different level of benefits. So would this position come with that higher level of benefits as well?
Yes, it does.
Okay. Because I didn't see that. I just saw the salary.
Yeah,
And
no,
I didn't see the benefits, so I wanted to make sure that, if we're going to move it to management, that you get all the bells and whistles,
You get all the bells and whistles. Yep.
Okay.
Okay, I think this is a difficult one because we don't see everybody in what they do. We don't get to observe all. employees doing their jobs. And this is one office where it seems like I've come in contact many times. And if we go back a little ways, we tried dropping the workload in there based on the what do you call them? Passport, taking the passport duties away. And then with the increase in public information, doesn't that come from that office?
It does.
Yeah. And the workload in there, even though we've decreased some of the work, we haven't decreased the workload from what I've seen. And there's an awful lot going on, and it seems to be getting done, and in a very good manner. So I'm afraid to say too much about the work that's done because we don't get to go out and see everybody doing their work. Yeah, when we're driving down the roads, we do see public works out fixing potholes and what have you, but to really give an analysis of the position. But this is one position that we see all the time. And I think it makes sense to move forward with this as staff has requested, and they requested it for all the good reasons. So we'll leave that one on to vote, unless someone says no vote.
And we can't amend to raise the upper realm of it. Do all feel comfortable with the rate?
It doesn't matter. That'll show in the vote, I think.
Okay, fair enough.
We could discuss it further if you like, though, and everybody give their opinion.
When I said benefits, I just want to make sure, having never been at management, it is a big deal when you get, promoted up, because it means that you not only get, I know when people think benefits, they think just, health benefits and dental and life insurance, but there's also the flexibility that comes, that management gets to have sometimes that, lower level employees don't always get. So I just want to make sure that, when I say benefits, it's everything that includes that as well. Because we do have, like you said, Mayor Mashburn, city employees that work very hard, that come very early and stay very late, and sometimes they need to leave. And even when we had our power shutdowns, we saw our city clerk here, with the power shutdown, working very diligently, and everyone from the city clerk's office. So I just want to make sure that all of that is included in the package.
Can I comment? I think working at my level, where I have all different levels, to me, I look at it as a small branch versus a big branch. So she has a smaller staff. So this deputy city clerk position title fits the area that she's in, where the deputy directors and some of the other departments have much larger staff to supervise and oversee. Would that be somewhat current? So that's kind of why there's a different pay scale for the two different positions. That might be part of the reason why there's a different pay scale. Plus, the work is different.
Yes.
So the actual responsibilities and such. And she's been doing a fantastic job filling in. So I'm also in favor of approving this.
Okay. All comments? Okay. So 6.
I did have a question for staff, but I know Councilwoman Lister also pulled this item.
On 6?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
I had a question for staff, if Stratus is here. No? Okay, if anyone can answer this question.
We have a representative here from the fire district that's volunteering to answer questions.
Wonderful, thank you.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, just for the record, Ryan Cry, Ventura County Fire.
Wonderful. I have a question.
Ryan, can I make a suggestion? We go ahead and vote on the first 5?
2 through 5.
2 through 5. What happened? No, 1 we're leaving off, and do 2 through 5. That way they're fresh in our memory.
And we're doing 2 as amended, right? Yes. With the, I'm sorry. 2's not amended. Which one?
4 is amended.
4, yes.
Yes.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you.
Second.
Call for the vote.
You beat me to the punch.
Motion passes unanimously with Councilmember Judge absent.
It just says voted.
Okay. Thank you, Ryan. Appreciate you letting us have that. Okay.
For the record, was that was all 4 in favor, right? Is that right?
4 in favor, yes.
Okay, because the screen did just say voted, not yes or no.
Thank you for being here tonight. I just had a question. I know it says that the project has been determined to be exempt from CEQA, and this may or may not be anything within your power or control. And the reason for the exemption says that if the activity is covered by the general rule that CEQA applies only to projects which have the potential for causing a significant effect on the environment. And it just seems with, what we're going through with climate change, what we're going through with our fires, that, this, there is a huge impact on the environment. So I'm just curious to know, why the exemption from CEQA, and what is the definition of impact, significant effect on the environment?
Yeah, that's, you're right.
If you know.
No, that's a little outside my purview of the CEQA determination.
I can add a little bit on that. This CEQA exemption is commonly used for ordinances, and it's the so-called common sense exemption, and the doesn't mean that it is common sense. It's just the so-called the common sense exemption, and it notes in our CEQA exemption that this wouldn't approve any specific project, and this would just allow the Fire Protection District to enforce the current state fire code within Simi Valley. So that's probably the origin of why the exemption would apply. So that's just as much as I can state about it, but there is that rationale given.
Okay, and my other question is, on page 21 of the report, at the top it says page 21, on the bottom it says page 16. It talks about sky lanterns, and I know there was a call to 911 the other day because there were all these lights that we saw going up slowly, and it turned out that they were sky lanterns, and seeing as how we've had, 2 fires in Simi Valley, and, there's a concern about that. It does say sky lanterns may be used when necessary for religious or cultural ceremonies, and adequate safeguards have been taken. But it also says sky lanterns shall be tethered in a safe manner to prevent them from leaving the area, and must be constantly attended to until extinguished. And I saw those sky lanterns go all the way up into the sky. And of course, my neighbors and I are going, wow, where are these going to end up? Is that going to cause another fire? So, how is there any means through which to regulate that, or, what happens?
Yeah, obviously, we do prohibit them. As the exemption says in there are some abilities for us to regulate to allow them for religious purposes. We do require a fire code permit. We put conditions on them, depending on, and similar to fireworks shows and such. It's a go, no-go kind of call at the time, depending on weather conditions, expected weather conditions, that kind of stuff. But it sounds like what you saw was possibly illegal. I would recommend calling 911 to report them, and we'll respond crews out there. PD would respond if needed, and we would shut the activity down.
Yeah, the theory was UFOs for a while, but then people said it was sky lanterns. But when I called, they said, yeah, like 20 people have called about that, and they were, but my concern was, again, the fire danger, and so I'm glad that that's in the code. I also saw that there was, and I'm sorry, I'm scrolling through the pages here, and I can't remember the page, but there was something about brush clearance. And I know for a fact that there was great concern about the lack of brush clearance up at the Santa Susana Field Lab. And while I know that's unincorporated Simi Valley, but I know this is county, so does this cover the Santa Susana Field Lab as well, since it's Ventura County?
Yes. They receive a notice, just like the other 18,000 property owners that have been deemed to be in a high fire hazard area where structures are present, and they do receive annual clearances, notices, and inspections are done. And if the work is not done, then our crews go out and do enforcement on it and bill the property owner.
Okay, and who does that bill go to? I mean, in the case of Santa Susana Field Lab specifically, does it go to NASA or Boeing or?
Whoever the legal property owner is on the parcel. I don't know. There's a mixture up there, if I remember correctly, from years ago that the United States is some of them. Boeing has a few properties under their name. So we'll go whoever's
who's over on the
record of
tax rolls.
Whoever's on the tax rolls.
That parcel number.
Okay, I know we're having a meeting tomorrow about the Santa Susana Field Lab, And I know that that was specifically, so when I saw this come up on the agenda, I wanted to be able to ask you the question about that specifically, the brush clearance up there, and what happens if there is no enforcement. And I know there's a section about liability as well in terms of, specifically the concern with the toxic fumes because of the lack of brush clearance up there and the impact that it had on our community here in Simi Valley. So that's why I'm asking that question. I'm curious to know if there's anyone that's going to be from your department at the hearing tomorrow.
Not that I'm aware of. There may be. It's outside of my purview, and I honestly didn't even know there was a meeting tomorrow.
Okay, thank you.
If I may, Councilmember Levinos, it can get, it doesn't mean that it is, but up there, there are many properties in the county that can get a little confusing because you may have a property that has never been required to clear brush clearance. And then because a neighboring property built a structure, now your property that's never been required to clear suddenly is a problem for your neighbor. And now you'll receive a notice and have to clear your property. And of course, usually the question that comes back is, I haven't cleared this property in the 50 years that I've owned it. Well, your neighbor didn't have a house there 50 years, he just put it up. And so that's where it gets real tricky, and the fire department is good at looking up the parcels and finding out. But sometimes you'll see a name and that makes no sense that they have to clear their particular property, but it may be because it's so close to a neighboring property, and that's why they have to clear.
I'm curious, Mayor, if you can answer the question, or if you can answer the question, Brian, does it ever happen the other way, where there's a building that's been demolished or abandoned or, that's fallen into disrepair, or, if then the brush grows over it, if there's still a requirement for brush clearance? Because I know that there have been buildings that have been demolished up at the San Jose Field Lab, and I know that there's buildings, in the city and in the county where they're just abandoned, they fall apart. The gazebo around my spout no longer exists because of the winds here in Simi Valley. So I'm just curious if that is the case as well, if it's the other way around where, there hasn't been a requirement for brush clearance, but now because there has been an overgrowth because of the abundance of rain that we've had recently, especially last year, there has been a lot of brush growth.
Well, the properties that have structures that are identified as structures that qualify for brush clearance under the ordinance, if those structures are demolished or fall in disrepair to where they're abandoned and have been deemed of not value to do it, every year they go out and do those inspections and evaluations, and if it's been demolished and removed, then the parcel is removed out of the program, and any surrounding properties owned by other individuals that may be impacted by that structure that's been removed will be removed from the program as appropriate.
So if the building is, just to clarify, just so that I know that I'm understanding what you're saying, so if there are buildings that are demolished and they previously had brush clearance requirements, once the building is demolished, then there may be no brush clearance requirements anymore, if there are no adjacent buildings.
Yes, assuming there's no other surrounding structures that impact that parcel, then that parcel is removed from the program.
Okay, but if there's still buildings, other buildings on the property, then they would still have some brush clearance requirements.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Mayor Mashburn.
Sure. Can I just, a little clarity, just so when you do the vote tonight, the vote tonight, we don't mind answering questions. The vote tonight is just on the ratification of the fire sprinkler modifications that we make to the building standards in Chapter 9.
We got a little off subject, but
that's no problem.
And I'd love to get to questions on that.
Good time to ask you. You're here.
Yeah.
And I was just going to clear up the page numbering. The page numbers on the top are the numbers of the actual staff report, but then the county's program starts on page 6, and so it's number page 1. And so that's why they're off.
Yeah, that's why I gave both numbers. I wanted to make sure everyone knew where it was.
Okay.
I move to approve consent item. Oh, I'm sorry.
I'd like to ask some questions if I might.
Yes, you may.
Okay. So as I understand, this ordinance number 31 was ratified. This is or was there was public hearings on this at the county level, and this is more restrictive than what the state fire code requires. Is that correct?
Correct. The ordinance was adopted by the Board of Directors on October 15th, which is the Board of Supervisors sits as our Board of Directors. The health and safety code requires us, when we make modifications to the building standards that are more restrictive than the state code, that we come to each individual jurisdiction, including the county board of supervisors for the unincorporated areas, and have those modifications ratified for enforcement.
So if we choose, and I'm going to ask more questions, but if we choose not to ratify this modification tonight, then basically ordinance number 30 stays in force. It doesn't, I mean, you still respond, it's just that you wouldn't enforce this portion, is that correct?
That's actually incorrect.
Okay.
Ordinance 30 is repealed effective January 1st, 2020 by Ordinance 31. So if you chose to deny the modifications that are contained in Chapter 9 of Ordinance 31, the state minimum code would be enforceable with regards to fire sprinklers within the city limits.
Gotcha, okay. And so just so I understand what this code does for fire sprinklers, if I understand correctly, any home built after January 1st, 2020, of any size, it is required to have sprinklers installed.
Actually, the state law requires single-family dwellings to be sprinklered. There are some exemptions under the ADU law, Senate Bill 1069, I believe. But the state building code actually requires residential dwellings to have fire sprinklers. So this ordinance, although back in 2007, when our original 0 square foot ordinance was put in place, that was prior to the state adopting their codes. In 2011, I believe the state made it mandatory, so it kind of, with regards to private single-family dwellings, made our section null and void because they're covered under the state code.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, so Ryan, why are we calling this more restrictive? If the state requires everything to be sprinklered? Is that what you just said?
Yes, with regards to single-family dwellings, where it gets more restrictive is we require retrofitting of single-family dwellings once they exceed certain square footages for additions, where the state does not have that retrofit provision in it under its current code.
Okay.
So with regards to commercial properties, we are more restrictive because we require all commercial properties, with a few exceptions that are listed in the code, to have fire sprinklers, where the state code does not require it until you hit certain trigger points, mainly square footage wise.
5,000 square feet, is that correct?
Typically, it's 12,000 for most occupancies, commercial. There are a few, I believe, assembly occupancies, restaurants and that type, that are down around the 5,000 square foot limit. So anything built under those square foot limits without our ordinance in place would not have fire sprinklers installed.
Okay. So you're saying then that any home built now, well, as I read through this, anything, including sheds, et cetera, give me exactly the description of a U building. That's the only exception to fire sprinklers now with this ordinance, correct?
Yes, a group U is typically like an agricultural type greenhouse or barn. Your backyard storage sheds, tough sheds, that kind of stuff is typically a group U occupancy. And we do exempt
Like a separate garage, for instance, would have to have a sprinkler.
Up to 1,500 square feet, no. Once you exceed 1,500 square feet, we have policy that exempts them up to a single-family private garage, detached, would be exempt up to 1,500 square feet. It talks about in here the group use as approved by the fire code official, and we do that through policy. We set those group use that qualify for that exemption through the policy.
And so if I read this correctly, if someone's remodeling, and if they remodel more than 1,000 square feet add-on, then they would have to retrofit sprinklers their entire house.
After 1,000 square feet, we analyze what percentage of that addition is.
Right.
So once you get the 1,000 square feet free, and then after the 1,000 square feet, if the addition exceeds 50% of the legal existing structure.
I thought it said 25%. Is it 50?
25% is for the commercial properties. So once it exceeds 1,000, we look at the percentage of the addition compared to the legal existing square footage for private single-family dwellings. And if that addition then exceeds 50%, then the retrofit requirement kicks in, and it is all new portions and existing portions of the home.
Okay, so I can add a bedroom to my house, and if it's 600 square feet, that doesn't trigger that I have to sprinkler the whole house?
Yes, anything under 1,000 square feet,
You don't even look?
we don't even, you get it free,
Okay.
assuming the main house is non-sprinkler.
But then when you go over 1,000, then it has to fall into the percentage?
The 50% rule, if it doesn't
50%
exceed the
on a
50%.
dwelling?
On the dwelling, which
Okay.
includes attached garage. We calculate the square footage of attached garages as part of that
So,
total square footage.
Yeah.
are you
Go
okay?
ahead, go ahead, yeah.
Okay, kind of. So when we're looking at a multiple dwelling complex, will there be any changes? Because my assumption is they're all over whatever your requirement is, because it's a building with 15 units, and that's going to be built. That's going to have to be sprinklered, correct?
Like an apartment building?
Yeah.
Yes, apartment buildings under the state code would require, it's considered what they call Group R occupancy, and the state code requires fire sprinklers throughout those regardless of square footage.
Okay, so you're not more restrictive there?
On that particular occupancy, we're not.
Okay,
Yeah.
because where I'm going is affordable housing, and SROs that we've seen recently, because of their overall square footage, they're going to need to be sprinklered, correct?
Well,
If there are enough units, obviously.
Well, those are based, the state code, anytime there's a Group R occupancy, the state code, building code requires fire sprinklers. So an apartment complex, regardless of number of units, would be classified as a Group R occupancy by the building official, and that would trigger the state requirement for sprinklers under the state building code.
Okay, so I'm confused in one area, Ryan, and that is where you say this is more restrictive, and that's the only place where I'm needing some help.
Yeah, there are a few provisions that we are not more restrictive. We are equivalent by saying we have a 0 square foot ordinance, and one of those would be the Group R occupancies, commercial or the single family dwellings. But other than that, everything else, by having a 0 square foot ordinance, we basically become more restrictive than the state code.
Meaning that anything that is built, period, new, except you, has to be sprinkled?
There are some other exceptions in there, yes, with some carport, solar carport type occupancies with certain construction classifications and that stuff we exempt. Some of the restroom buildings and parks, some of those type of occupancies, small occupancies, lunch shelters in parks that have, non-solid covers, they are exempt too.
As far as you know, in the past, we always said that if you sprinklered a structure, that you'd make it up down the road in insurance savings. Is that true to this day?
Yes. From the last research we did about 5-6 years ago, it is, I couldn't tell you what the return on it is, how many years, but it does in the end up paying for itself. The other thing important to remember is we use fire sprinklers. The provisions that are in our code on fire sprinklers have been in existence since 1982. In 2007, we introduced the 0 square foot ordinance with regards to the single-family dwellings. Commercial structures were already a 0 square foot ordinance as of 1982. But we use fire sprinklers as part of an overall fire protection plan for the fire district, which includes all the cities and unincorporated areas that we serve. And by having those in there, we reduce obviously, fire sprinklers will control or extinguish the fire at a very small phase, assuming the sprinkler system is maintained and operational. Therefore, it creates a lot less draw for equipment for us and demand on water systems and such. So we use these provisions to kind of, as part of our overall fire protection strategy in the fire district. So, for instance, if we had a sprinklered structure and we had a fire, it's more likely to get established and get outside the realm of a single engine company responding, to where now we're pulling maybe 3-4 engine companies initially, and depending on the size of the fire, we may pull an additional 4 to 5 engines and a second alarm to that fire, which is pulling resources away from other parts of the city, other parts of the fire district. A fire that size, we would, most likely be bringing equipment in from Thousand Oaks to augment the equipment on the response, which then would pull equipment from Camarillo to backfill into Thousand Oaks, and it just kind of, progresses from there.
Percentage of effectiveness of sprinklers? Percentage of effectiveness of extinguishment?
In most fires, 1 to 2 sprinkler heads will either control or extinguish the fire. In residential fire sprinklers, the systems are designed for a 2-head activation, and again, almost 99% of the time, they control or extinguish the fire before we get there.
What, and maybe this is a question for building or planning safety, what does sprinklers add to the cost of building?
Typical new construction, again, from 5-6 years ago when we did a cost study and kind of analysis, we were getting quotes anywhere from new construction, $1.50 to $2 a square foot. Retrofitting structures ran anywhere from $3 to $4 a square foot. And again, it could be lower depending on the design of the structure, how easy it is to access the attics and concealed spaces and that such.
I actually have a question. Do we have, we're not in the position to actually take out little items. We have to either prove this or not prove it, correct?
Correct.
So in other words, one of the things this does, for instance, is it makes safe and sane fireworks illegal throughout the entire county.
Correct. But that is not an item that's...
That's not what we're talking about.
Well, it was in here as it was.
The law requires that we transmit the entire ordinance, but you're only here to ratify and vote on the items that are in Chapter 9 of that
Oh, I
ordinance.
see. Okay,
Yeah.
so if it was in a different chapter, it's already enforced.
It's already adopted and
So
enforced.
page 33 is already adopted, okay.
Yeah, that...
I realize I was born on the 4th of July, and I still, anyway, that's right.
Yeah, that provision has been around for years.
I thought there were pockets in the county that still have, I guess.
The city of Fillmore, which is not within the fire protection district, is the only
I
city
see.
that allows fireworks still.
Okay. Okay.
Okay. Any other questions?
Mayor, I move to adopt consent item number 6 and adopt resolution number 2019-50.
Second.
One comment. I don't think you're used to coming in and getting drilled with all these questions, and I appreciate you
It's no problem.
staying up there and answering some of these questions.
No, not a problem. We're here to help understand it.
I think I'm a guy that's supposed to know the answers, and I don't remember or something, and I appreciate you
Not a problem.
taking care of us. And with that, call for the vote.
Wait, I voted, I promised, but
Do it again?
are we just slow? I'm sorry.
And can I just add, the suggested motion had a CEQA exemption in the motion. I'm assuming the maker of the motion doesn't mind that the CEQA exemption is in that motion.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Okay, ready, set, vote.
I did.
Motion passes unanimously with Councilmember Judge absent. Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council, there are no items tonight for item 7, continued business. Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council, there are no items tonight for item number 8, new business. Mr. Mayor and members of the City Council, next item on the agenda is 9A, City Council Member Reports.
Okay. Councilmember Litzner.
So I'd like to take this in calendar order. On Wednesday, November the 6th, I had the privilege of attending the Ron Helis Highway dedication ceremony in Thousand Oaks, and I will say that it was a beautiful ceremony, and so sad for the occasion, but I think most appropriate that there is now a highway sign that can be found on the 101 that is near borderline, near those exits, and that commemorates his sacrifice and for those who were in that terrible incident. And it was just a very memorable occasion. On Thursday, November the 7th, I had the privilege of attending the Simi Valley Ed Foundation Teacher of the Month at Big Springs Elementary, where we honored Anne Marie Ingram, an outstanding educator. Also had the opportunity to meet with our city planner, excuse me, I'm changing your title there, Brian, with our city manager, Brian Gabler. Appreciated his time and comments. And then attended the ribbon cutting for AHPN General Surgery ribbon, their first anniversary. And again, that's a thank you to, I will tell, to the Adventist Health System. And I will tell you that Dr. Aliciato, who was actually, it was his office we were commemorating, he didn't realize it, but he actually performed surgery on my husband. And so it was lovely to see him in normal clothing as opposed to blue scrubs. But very appreciative of their being here in Simi Valley. On Friday, November 8th, attended the ribbon cutting of the Mailbox Plus. On Saturday, November 9th, attended the YMCA's 35th year anniversary, which was quite an occasion to commemorate their history and learn a little bit more about how they moved to where they are now, and how the police department moved here, and how the Northridge earthquake figure, and all of that. Anyway, it was just very informative, but it was lovely to commemorate those at that event. On November the 11th, Monday, that was Veterans Day, and I know I attended with all of my colleagues on the City Council. It was a lovely event put on by the Rancho Simi Recreation Park District, their Veterans Day event held there at Veterans Plaza. And I'd like to congratulate the distinguished veteran Michael Harrington, who was featured there, who served in the Vietnam War and was also a reserve police officer in Simi Valley. And I wanted to commend our mayor in telling him that his picture headlining the Acorn was very handsome. It was a very lovely photograph of you at that event. So just wanted to mention that.
Put on my glasses?
No, I'm just saying it was a good picture. Wednesday, actually Tuesday, November 12th, I participated in the Simi Valley Ed Foundation, their Lou Roth Awards committee meeting. On Thursday, November the 14th, I need to put my hats off to the amazing staff who contributed and were part of the amazing chili, the charitable chili cook-off. I will tell you that I want to commend Martha Coyne and the rest of the staff who coordinated that event. It was really tremendous, the fabulous food, chili that was there. And I think it's very commendable that our city staff would put their own time and energy into cooking and purchasing. And as I understand, they raised $440 that was donated to the Senior Share Closed Pantry Program. And so that was really commendable. I, again, thank the city for employees for all that they did for that. That evening, I attended Neighborhood Council number 3 as I am the liaison and wanted to just connect with them. I will say one thing, and maybe this needs to come later. We need more flags. They couldn't find the flag for the Pledge of Allegiance. It had walked out of the house. So I'm just saying maybe we need 1 or 2 more copies in the city building so that doesn't happen again. On Saturday, November 16th, I attended briefly the New York Life ribbon cutting and also the tree lighting at the town center. It was a lovely event, and I was amazed at the number of attendees. It was a lovely event here in our city. And today I had the opportunity of meeting with Maggie Kessler of Mid-Valley Properties, and that concludes my report.
Thank you. Councilmember Luevanos.
On Monday, November 4th, right before our city council meeting, I met with Mara Mulch on the task force on homelessness. She gave me a briefing on the meeting that we had. On Tuesday, November 5th, I attended the Simi Valley Youth Council meeting where they talked about the Simi Valley Summit, Youth Council Summit, and I think our Youth Council member summed up pretty nicely what we talked about at that meeting. And our next meeting is tomorrow. If anyone wishes to attend, you are more than welcome to join us. It's 5 p.m. here in the community room tomorrow at Tuesday, November 19th. On Wednesday, November 6th, I had my weekly phone meeting with City Manager Brian Gabler. On Friday, November 8th, I had my weekly meeting with City Attorney Lonnie Eldridge. On Monday, November 11th, I too, with the rest of City Council, the mayor and Mayor Pro Tem, attended the Veterans Day event at the Lemon Park, and it was a wonderful event. I learned a lot about the American Legion. I did not know the full history of it, and it was wonderful to see the very first female president of the American Legion chapter, which was wonderful to see a representation of our female veterans there. And on Wednesday, November 13th, I attended the Community Coalition United meeting here at the Simi Valley Library. For those of you who do not know, that is a meeting of all the nonprofits in the area, and they are a wealth of information, everything from dealing with substance abuse to suicide and mental health support and pretty much any kind of support that you would need for any kind of issue that you would need. You can find help and support there at the Community Coalition United. They're still waiting to see where their January meeting will be, but I know they will have a meeting in January. They meet every other month. So I'll keep you apprised of when their next meeting will be in January and where it will be. On Thursday, November 14th, we had our task force on homelessness, and staff members Mara Mulch and April did a wonderful job putting together the event. I've never seen so many people at our task force meeting. We had, I believe, over 40 people attend, residents, community members who came out, and we had panels. A panel that included providers from the county and the region talking about behavioral health issues and substance abuse. And I asked them, what is it the city can do about the issue of homelessness? And there are some grants that we can apply for. There were a couple of our homeless residents who showed up who asked for the Housing First model. I know we do have some redevelopment funds, so I know that our homeless residents are asking for support in terms of getting the housing. We don't have shelters here. We heard the report from Adventist Health about foster youth homeless is rising and how the nearest shelter is all the way in Oxnard. So we really need to not just talk about our homeless, but actually do something to address the issue of homelessness. And it seems the most effective way to do that is by providing housing first. And there are many, many different ways to do that. There is money through No Place Like Home through the state of California. There is funding available. There is support. They did, express, some disappointment that we didn't apply for any of those grants. So there are 2 more rounds. So we do have an opportunity as a city to adjust that issue and to partner with our nonprofits and with our other community members that are dealing with the issue of homelessness, and they're in the trenches, on the front line, dealing with the issue of homelessness. And I think we as a city need to do our part. And the task force is meant not just to, talk about the issue, but actually do the implementation and the action plan, just like our health community partners did. So I'd really love to see some movement. And that is, I believe, the purpose of the task force is to actually help solve the issue and address the issue of homelessness in the city. So I will be bringing that forth as an issue in 9B. And I would like to invite, before I finish my report, I would like to invite anyone who does not have a place to spend Thanksgiving. You are all invited to the Interfaith Thanksgiving at Shepherd of the Valley on Tuesday, November 26th at 7 p.m. You are all welcome. Anyone is welcome to join the Interfaith Thanksgiving. If you don't have a place to go, please come join us. Thank you. And that is my report, Mayor Mashburn.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Kamina.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The week of November 5th was my birthday week, so I did a lot of celebrating. But on November 9th, my actual birthday, I attended the Borderline Party in the Park over at Canoe Creek North in Thousand Oaks. It was wonderful. They actually had a sellout crowd. So we had live music, you had family members, you had survivors, you had a mix of the communities, and there was just a whole lot of support and heart involved there. And I want to compliment our explorers. So Simi Valley Police Explorers Post 2910 were the color guard for the event, and they did a fantastic job. I was very proud of them. I filmed them and got pictures, so I posted all of them. They did a great job. That same night, on November 9th, I also attended the YMCA's 35th anniversary dinner, where one of our longest-serving planning commissioner, Mike McGuigan, was one of the honorees for his commitment to the YMCA, along with others. Mary Spielman, and I'm not sure, a couple others. Very, very worthwhile awards and recognition, right, Mayor?
Yes, it was a nice program.
It was a nice event. And on Monday, November 11th, obviously was Veterans Day. We all attended. Being a former Park District Director, I'm really proud of how well the Park District does that event. It's fantastic, right, Tom? On November 12th, I actually was able to attend my Rotary, which was kind of fun. We had Dr. Odio, who's a family practice doctor, present, and he told us more about micromomes and C. diff than you ever want to know. But it was really nice because my Rotary Club actually honors a student of the month. So they pick the high schools and the middle school, one each month, and they honor a student from there, which is really nice. It happened to be Sinaloa, which is where my daughter is a counselor at, and a young lady by the name of Ella, and I can't remember her last name, it was Mick something. So Ella, congratulations, she did a great job. On Thursday, November 14th, I attended the Ventura County Animal Shelter Commission meeting. I represent the Simi Valley as a commissioner on there, and we meet quarterly. I want to thank Mara Malch tremendously for prepping me for the meeting. It had some very interesting information. The animal shelter is old and needs to be replaced, especially the one in Camarillo. So the county, along with all the 8 contract cities, are looking at ways to find the money and how we're going to do it and where we're going to put it. So there was a lot of interesting conversation about that, as well as the new contracts that they're getting ready to put out. There's going to be a large increase proposed, and Mara pointed it out to me, and we were able to bring it up first, and we had a lot of other cities agree with our ideas and that we had concerns and wanted more explanation on that. So hopefully we'll get more information for them. The new director there is doing a great job. Each of you have a report. We have the commission meeting agenda in your boxes. It has a report with the live release rates. Our shelters do a fantastic job on that. And it also has new contract information in there if you want to glance through that. On Friday, November 15th, I mentioned earlier, I sit on the hospital's governing board. I'm coming off it now this year, but I was able to attend the strategic plan update on Friday, where we went over different plans where the hospital wants to go, but it also included how involved they're going to be with the community, what we need to support our community, along with these community needs assessment. We need to support our hospital. It is a nonprofit, and Giovanni will gladly take your credit card number for the foundation if you're ready. So, and on November 16th, on Saturday, I also attended the tree lighting, which was up at the Simi Valley Town Center. They did a great job. Santa was there. There were more people there this year than last year, in my opinion, and they did a great job. That's the end of my report, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. On Tuesday, November 5th, I attended the RDP 21 meeting at the Government Center in Ventura. It was a presentation on the kind of like the educational opportunities at Navy Base Ventura and where they're headed in the future, and looking at technology, and also making it very clear that they're not only looking for enlisted people, they're looking for private folks to take high-tech jobs there, and they'll be spending a lot of money doing that in the future, and looking for more career-minded people. And I'd like to remind you that the Navy base is the first or second largest employer in the county. I think maybe the first now. I then went to Valley View Junior High or Middle School, and was at their career day, and that was fun because I had multiple young folks that would come up and sit at your table and ask how to become a mayor. And so great discussions, many different occupations there represented. And so I think they got a good view, and they were very good students and great questions. On Wednesday, November 6th, I was at the Simi Valley Arts Commission meeting. And just to sum it up, I think what we saw is a change in what's happening over at the Cultural Arts Center as far as it's getting busier, and there's becoming fewer dates available because it's being rented out. And also, some of the plays have been just absolutely home runs, sold out night after night. And then they do have some concert series that are also coming there. So good things are happening over at the Cultural Arts Center. On went to a grand opening ribbon cutting on Friday, November 8th, and to the YMCA dinner on the 9th. And of course, I went to the Veterans Day event, which was a very nice event put on by the Park District. And I'd like to point out at the, since we really beat him up tonight, the firefighters supplied the food for that event for everybody. And I just want to give a shout out and a thank you for the Ventura County firefighters for supplying the food. And there was no tickets, no nothing. You got in line and you got fed. It was very kind of them to do that. Thursday, November 14th, I went to the VCOG meeting in Camarillo. Somehow I got on all these committees to drive around the county, and it just goes from 5 to 7. And but the sheriff made a nice presentation on what's happening in the county, the types of crimes that we're dealing with, and what have you. And there was quite a bit of talk on marijuana growing. It seems as though, and they call it hemp. I guess it's a lower quality marijuana, but there's been some major thefts in the hemp fields of Camarillo, which is having an impact on what Sheriff's Department has to do. And they're getting many complaints about the odors produced by the hemp fields. And I hadn't smelled it, and so I'm on my way home, and I'm coming down the 23, and I go, wow, I'm smelling the fire. I've never smelled a fire that smelled like this. Well, sure enough, it was a hemp growing that I was smelling, and I think the more part people are now also starting to complain about the odors. So it's something that we want to keep an eye on to see what happens. And but the sheriff was addressing those issues and other crime issues in the county, and also some of the outreach programs that the Sheriff Department's doing for at-risk youth. They're making some great headway. So it was a very good report. On Friday, November 15th, I and the city manager met with representatives from Bank of America about the status of what's coming our way for the Bank of America in our city. You'd be glad to know that the Bank of America signed a 5-year lease on the existing building up on Madera. And when you see some of these buildings being vacated, they're really consolidating into the building up there on Madera. So that was very good news that we're not going to see Bank of America leaving town, as some folks have predicted. And that is my report. All right, 9B, do we have any items to go on the future council agendas?
I was going to defer to Councilwoman Lutzer.
Okay.
Yes, I had, hinted at asking for an action plan for homelessness, and we had, Adventist Health come and present on the issue of homelessness in our community. So I would ask that we put together an actual action plan for homelessness on what the city is actually going to do in terms of action and not just thoughts in addressing the issue of homelessness in our community. So giving either the task force the ability to move forward with action and applying for these grants, or the city council to move forward in terms of addressing the issue of homelessness besides just the task force. Because I feel like we need to have action, not just discussion.
Okay, anybody want to second that? I'd like to say that part of our process with the committees is you bring back reports on those committees as you have done. And I would say that we'd like to hear from the committee or the task force. What do they suggest? What do they come back with? And I think there's definitely two of
You'd like a
them.
recommendation?
Yeah, what are the recommendations? And then that would go to staff and then eventually to council. But
Okay, so you want me to come back with the recommendation from the task force?
Yeah, from the task force.
Okay. I'm happy to do that.
Is that good?
Yes.
Okay.
My second request is, I did my due diligence and research, and I even asked around a couple of employees if we had a conflict of interest policy. My understanding is that one of the Cultural Arts Foundation meetings in October, one of the commissioners is going to authorize, the commission authorized one of the commissioners from the Cultural Arts Foundation, is that correct, commissioners? Yes?
Yeah.
To create flyers or a poster, and that just seems like a direct conflict of interest. I would never, as a city councilwoman, offer my services as a teacher or whatever consulting business I have on the side to city council, because that seems like a conflict of interest. So I would like to bring forth, or for staff to report to, if we don't have a conflict of interest policy for our foundation and our commissioners and our neighborhood council, that we have such. I know we have a lot of people who are business owners and have consulting businesses, but I would like there to be a clearly defined conflict of interest policy so that people are well aware that, the optics and the conflicts are not good for our city, and they deprive others of opportunities, other businesses in the area of opportunities to participate in that process.
I think we have a conflict of interest, but I don't know if it affects commissions and committees.
Yeah, I would have to research that. Nothing comes at top of mind, so let us take a look at it, and if there's a need to bring something back, we can certainly do that.
Okay.
So is that a second to research it so that we can have it
Yeah, we'll wait
clearly
for his
delineated?
report to come back, and then,
Okay, yes,
because we don't want to bring it up if we already have it.
Yeah,
Then our direction could be, hey, if you have it, use it.
Yeah, no, I searched and I looked and I asked, and no one could find me a city policy on conflict of interest so that we don't have those financial conflicts of interest. We don't want to put ourselves in that position where there's liability, where other, small businesses could sue us.
Yeah, that's fine.
And I definitely want to be risk aversive, and I want to make sure we have transparency and accountability in our local government.
Okay, we'll wait for staff's return on that. Okay, anybody else? That's it. Tonight, we're going to adjourn in memory of Rachel Spry and also the victims of the Saugus High School shootings. And with that, meeting's adjourned.